Welcome to Find It on this Wednesday evening. I'm so excited you're here. And tonight we have a guest who I've had on before, and I plan to have him on again, Barry Selby, the author of 50 Ways to Love Your Lover. 50 Ways to Love Your Lover. That's what I say, not leave. He's going to teach you how not to do that, or maybe how to do that. And he is an amazing relationship expert. So you are at the right place. If you have questions in any type of relationship that you have, or you just want to listen to what he has to say tonight, you've hit the right place. So hang tight. We will show his intro and he will be right back with us. Hey, my friend, how are you doing?
Doing great. Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too. How was your Easter?
It was wonderful. Got to spend it at my spiritual center, my church, so to speak. I mean, spiritual center, and just with a lot of friends, and the music was wonderful. Just had a really nice time. I
Yeah,
mean,
was the weather great out there?
I come from a Jewish background. I do the Passover thing the previous Wednesday, but Easter I don't have an Easter feast, but at least Easter connection. So yeah, the weather's been better. We've had no rain, thankfully, for a couple of weeks. Although it's been kind of hazy and misty the last few days.
Yeah, so Barry lives in the LA area, and I
Indeed.
was blessed enough to meet you in person. Len, my producer, and I. It was such a great meeting someone in person is so much better. It's almost like solidifying the relationship when you meet in person,
Yeah.
Maybe that's a question I should ask you. Does that solidify the relationship? You got to meet in person, be in
Um,
physical body.
I can. I mean, because to make long distance relationships, that sort of thing happens. People sometimes will sort of build connection from a distance, either through social media or through some other platform. But meeting in real life is really the confirmation. Because the thing is, you can fall in love with somebody virtually, but when you meet them in person, you go, "What was I thinking?" you
Yeah.
know. So there
Has
is going
that
to be.
ever happened to you?
I have met people in real life that I met virtually first, where I've had it work both ways. Where one was like, "This is really the person I thought they were," and then I met them in person. Sometimes they go, "That is not the person I thought they were." you
Yeah,
know.
that makes sense. I mean, you
Yeah.
just never know until I don't know. I
Mhm.
think that for a long time, I didn't understand that when people had not met in person and they're just talking online or whatever, I would always say, how does someone have that deep of a connection with someone without meeting them, without actually like giving them a hug or like talking face to face? And the more research I've done and the more people I've spoken to, especially after meeting you, Barry, and learning some things through you, the more I realized you're asking questions, you're communicating, and that is the basis of any relationship is how you communicate with one another, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because I've spent a lot of time on the Clubhouse app, which is an audio app, and I made some really deep friendships there. Meeting those people in real life is the transformation experience. And most of the people, to be clear, not all, but most of the people was so much more wonder and sort of and confirmation meeting in person. And then some people was like, not so much.
Yeah.
So it's not guaranteed.
Yeah.
And in my dating and relationship type advising, I've said very often, and people sort of poo-poo this idea, but I say when you meet someone in a dating app and you meet virtually, I say like go out with them and meet them like for coffee first, like a daytime date first, because you want to know if that person's really the person you think they are. And before you invest a big time in a date and dressing up and everything else,
Yeah.
frankly, meeting casually is a better way of meeting somebody than meeting when they're dressed up, because all the hair and makeup for the women and for some of the men can be a little distracting because it doesn't show you the real person. So
Mm.
you go through the initial meeting somebody on the app by texting through the app and hopefully communicating first by audio or video inside the app without giving any personal information for the ladies especially.
Yeah.
Then you can move that into a real life meetup. Once you know they're real, you'll get to feel into if that person's who you think they are.
Yeah, and and let's go to back to where the Clubhouse app, because I've been in there before for different, business opportunities or whatever, and to listen to people.
Yeah,
But it's just a picture, and then you hear the voice.
yeah.
So uh, that there's a little bit of a disconnect there for me. Like if you can't see them talk like we're doing right now, I think
Mhm.
that this is probably the closest you can get of a virtual relationship outside of the real in physical body meeting that you can
Right.
get, because you can almost feel people's energy this way more than you can just through through a still shot photo.
Yes, yes, and
And
because in Clubhouse, as in audio apps, it's like, yes, being on the phone with somebody, and you can actually get a sense of somebody pretty well through the phone. You're talking to them in an audio format. The the idea of doing Clubhouse is not that different. So it does have a different energy. And yes, Zoom meetings and things like that, we're doing things virtually, can create a more multi-dimensional, because things audio is like one level and videos are one on top of that. But in person is more three-dimensional,
yeah,
because this is still two dimensions, so to speak. 'Cause it's a
yeah,
flat screen, you know.
yeah, yeah. I can't see around you. Just flat screen I mean, but it's so true. I am really the type of person that, this is all good and it's great, but for me,
Mhm.
if I don't meet someone in person, it's almost like, I am a person that can feel people's energy, and
Right.
so I get you're right. You get through the tone of a voice and through how you interact, whether it's on the phone or FaceTime or whatever,
Mhm.
you can get kind of an idea, but you're right. It's almost like when you meet someone, I know anyway, right away if there's any type of connection or not. Eric and Robert sent a message, and Sean Benson sent a message earlier, but Eric Flanoy, the brother has found it. God's blessings to you, Debbie and Barry. Eric,
Thank
I
you, Eric.
can hear you saying that. I tried to say it like you. I hope I did it justice. But yeah, so then this then leads me to this next thing that we've actually touched on in the last podcast you're on, online dating.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing. Really, you're trying to get to know someone just by texting back and forth, right? I've never
Mhm.
been on one of those apps, but I have several friends who are
You
currently
missed
and
this
have been.
experience. You
Yeah,
missed
I'm
that.
missing. Tell me why.
Well, being single, I'm on the apps, just to be transparent as well. The thing with the
He's
apps is
married. He's
I'm
married and
not.
he's on the app. No.
No, single 16 years. We can talk about that another time too, maybe. But the thing about the dating apps is that they've gotten better over time in terms they do offer a means to communicate by audio and by video inside the app, which is a real nice idea to add, for, especially again for the ladies, because there's that privacy and security. You don't get scammed as easily, although men get scammed too. Having said that, in the dating app, you trust the pictures you see are the person you think you're matching with. That's the other part too, because sometimes the pictures either aren't even that person if it's a scam, or they could be 10, 20 years older than, younger than the person who's real life. So
Oh,
when you meet them
wow.
in person, you notice they don't look the same at all. And frankly, as a guy, we are visually oriented beings. So we notice by pictures more than sometimes the words what a woman looks like. And the thing is, when a woman, and this is a little tip for ladies, by the way, if you want to be noticing your profile more often than not, don't just do shots from the neck up, which some people do. Some women basically just show the same shot, like just different positions of the head. It's like, what about full length? I know, like to be transparent. I mean, this
I
is not to be shallow, but I want to know if the person I'm meeting is in the same level of shape I am, at least. I'm not
yeah,
saying she's got to be knocked down, not knock out gorgeous, although that doesn't hurt. But if she's not taking care of herself,
yeah.
I'd like to know before I meet them, because that's not what I want to
Well,
be with.
that's fair. I mean, come
Mhm.
on. That's being fair, and that you're just being transparent and honest. And so
Yeah.
like this, you wanna make sure she can go hiking with you through
Right.
Hollywood Hills, you
Indeed.
know?
Well, the funny story is that a friend of mine and I went up there. She was telling me about, I need to check it out because I've been in LA for basically 40 years. That's Lake Hollywood. I'd never been there before.
Mhm.
It's in the middle of LA and I've never been there. It's like I need to get there finally. So
Yeah.
it was nice to go.
Yeah, I loved it. I hiked up there a couple of times, once, several years ago with my friend that lived out there, and I
Mhm.
loved it. We got really cute pictures because I'm from Ohio and she was from Ohio also. And we managed to use the H and the O of the Hollywood, and we added the IO in the picture. So we were like, we're putting Ohio in Hollywood. It was fun. But anyway, so
Yes.
I have a few questions
Mhm.
that people have messaged me that on their behalf, I'm going to ask you your opinion on.
Okay. Sure.
So one of the questions was, how can couples communicate more positively when they both or one or the other get triggered by the other's comments?
Well, the first thing is to be honest. And it's the thing. What most people tend to do is they get upset with their partner. They don't own their part in it. So they just blame the other person, which is an errant approach. The biggest opportunity that couples have, people have in general, is take ownership of your feelings. Because I think we talked last time about codependency. One of those things of being about codependent is we tend to put the onus on the other person for how we feel. So when
Mm.
we feel bad, we say it's your fault. Well, that gives them the power to make you happy or sad, which is not healthy at all. So if you get upset with your partner, to say, when you did that, I got upset, versus you upset me by doing that. Very
Oh,
different energetically.
yeah,
The first step
totally.
is, when you did that, or when you dented the car, for example, use an extreme one in a sense, I got upset because I concerned because I didn't feel like you cared about the car. This is my feelings about what I felt about what you did, not you did something wrong. Because none of that what I said is saying that what you did was the wrong thing. But I'm saying what happened gave me something that I felt upset about.
Hmm.
So that
That is a huge difference with a subtle change, isn't it?
Mhm,
I mean, just not coming at someone like, "You made me feel terrible." Well,
right.
then the other person gets defensive. That's so true, Barry.
Or the other person goes, "Wow, I have the power."
Yeah.
You
"I'm gonna
know?
make you feel like shit again soon. Hang
Well,
tight."
some people do that. So
Oh,
so one way to make it more positive is take ownership. The second
okay,
part is to really be clear. Is what upset you what happened, or something from the past that's been resurfaced by what happened?
okay.
A lot of our relationship patterns, upsets, wounds aren't from this current relationship. They're from previous relationships.
Ooh,
And this person now happens to be the um no one's instinct is the wrong word, but happens to be the unconscious trigger of that. They're not aware they're doing it. We just feel it. And so the reason I work with singles is to help people to clear out that stuff before they get into a relationship. Don't
mhm.
drag old baggage into a new relationship.
You know what? I remember you talking about that before. Say
Mm.
that again.
Which part?
The part of you gotta heal from an old
Oh,
relationship
yeah.
and that baggage before you move on to another one. And there was a chapter 16 in your book talks about relationship rebound.
Mhm.
And that's probably, what you just said.
Yeah, well, the way I'll describe it this way, because this is not in the book this way, it's differently, because since I wrote the book 10 years ago, I've had some new ideas about talking about it. Doesn't mean I need to update the book, I guess. Is that we tend, after relationships end, especially if we suffered because we were broken up with versus the one that broke up with the other person,
Yeah.
we have this tendency a lot of times to just numb the wound. We'll go sulk in a corner. We may get upset. We may just pull the blanket over our head or hugging us for 3 or 4 days, but eventually we'll come out of it. But we won't do anything to fix it. All we've done is just numb the pain. Ultimately,
Mm,
the thing is, they say that time heals all wounds, but the reality is it doesn't heal emotional wounds. It just numbs them out because they get so um, repeated. We just don't do anything about it. And so what happens is that numbing means that becomes ignored. And then we meet somebody else and it gets to pull up to the surface again, because when they tap into the loving inside of us, that loving is tied to the wound from the previous relationship. The way I describe it is, if you imagine you go through a breakup, you put bandages and band-aids around your heart to protect it. Obviously, you want to take care of yourself. The problem is, though, we don't do the work to heal the wounds underneath those bandages, so they stay on there. So when we meet somebody else, what happens is, and this is the other part, is that we don't have the ability to love fully because the bandages are in the way, so we can't even love fully. And we meet somebody, so the person we meet is not getting the benefit of our full love either. So it's vital between one end relationship ending and the next one to do the work to heal, to make peace with it, to actually make amends to yourself, because a lot of it's our own wounding. So you can be free to love properly when we meet somebody else.
And that can be in friendships as well.
Oh yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, sometimes I know, even with friend group, like if you're a friend to someone and they say, you can tell that there's old wounds from troubled friendships, that maybe someone will say something to them that are their friend now, and it reminds them of how they were treated in a prior friendship that hurt them. That's
Yep.
gonna open some, like, crack that back open again.
Yeah. It's like but the thing is, because that previous friendship didn't get cleaned up either. If we go
Yeah.
through breakups in friendships or relationships, that's going to affect us, because it's affecting our heart, which is the place we love from. I mean, metaphorically speaking. Another way to use the term, I talk about calling it painting over rust. Because the thing is,
Oh.
because that analogy I've used a lot, because it's so simple and visual to see. If you've ever gone through, like, you found, like, your car had rust on it, and you figured you just cover up the rust by painting over that without doing anything different to the rust, without cleaning it out. In a few months, that rust is going to bubble up through the paint again.
Mhm.
The same thing's true emotionally if we don't heal the emotions in the way. Because when we go through breakups and we have that, wounding and sadness and upset and guilt and all these other things, if they don't get resolved, healed, transformed, they're still in there. You meet somebody else, it's like you just put more paint on top of the rust. It doesn't get healed. You gotta,
That's
I mean,
true.
sorry to
It
say it,
it
but
it creeps back in there. It creeps
yeah.
back in there just like the rust. It comes through that fresh coat of paint on top. It's gonna creep wet back in there. So, basically, you're saying then that's a lot that you've explained that makes a lot of sense. I love
Mhm.
it. But so, when couples or even in friendships or family members, whenever you're trying to have a positive conversation and it goes south because you get triggered by one or the other comment, you then need to address it and give the message back to them delivered in the proper way that doesn't make them go on the defense,
Yeah,
and
and you
just
may
say, you know, not "You made me feel that way," but
right.
"This comment makes me," or "This is how it makes me feel. It makes me upset,"
Hmm.
and communicate that way. And I know there
Well,
are people who are better communicators than others, so
yeah, but this, hopefully people get value from this and can use it themselves. The thing I would say is also is if you get triggered, you may not have the wherewithal in that moment to do anything about it. So you can say to the person whether it's your partner or a family member or whoever, you say, you know what, I'm really upset right now. Let me walk away and clear my head first.
ooh, that's good. Yeah.
And then come back and communicate. Because the thing is, it takes a real mastery, and I'm not sure even I have that at this point. If I get upset by something that's happening and I choose and I'm feeling out of sorts, I may not be able to communicate clearly to the person who was the trigger for that. Not that they controlled me, but it's like I know that I'm not going to communicate clearly with them without doing the same thing in return by upsetting them.
Right. And that's powerful, though, to even be able to stop yourself from
Oh yeah,
reacting.
yeah.
So that is a superpower to be able to do that. And then with time and collecting your thoughts, then you can readdress it when you're calm, more calm and not as emotional. That's great,
Well,
Barry.
yeah. Well, when you can practice it, that's the thing. It is practice. It's not something you
Yeah.
just don't get it and done with it. The thing is that can we be self-aware enough to stop ourselves from basically putting a foot in our mouth, so to
Mhm.
speak? Because I've done that many times myself, so I'm clear
Yeah.
I'd be guilty of this. So we don't do that. So we can change the course of our relationships.
I love that. Another question I have is, how does therapy help couples, and how long do couples typically go?
I don't have statistics to give you an answer on that. However, I would say, and I'm not a therapist, by the way. I'm a relationship guide. I hate the term coach, but that's kind of what I do. So I'm not a therapist per se, but I would suggest that any couple wants to improve their relationship, even if they're not having bad issues happen,
Mhm.
go seek someone you can use as a third party, as a support system,
Yeah.
whether it's a therapist or maybe your minister at your church or something else you can use as a resource place. Use that basically. If you're going to go see a therapist, you go and see them till the problem you have is resolved, because that's really the thing that makes the difference. It's really about having a transformational experience and having a shift happen so you no longer need to use that resource anymore. You don't see a therapist for 25 years because, frankly, if you're seeing the same therapist for 25 years and nothing's changed, you're seeing the wrong therapist.
That's funny. Or okay, so that brings me to this one.
Or you haven't done the work yourself to change, but yeah.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's
Mm-hmm.
so true. Things aren't going to change if you continue to have the same behaviors.
Right.
That's so true. Um, well, wait, do you have any examples of people that you know that therapy has or maybe even hasn't worked?
One example I know came straight to mind when you asked me that question before is I had a couple that I worked with briefly. She actually reached out to me and said, can you see her? Can I see her and her fiance? Because they're going through some stuff before they get married. They want to get clear. And I was like, great. You want to figure things out before you get married? Wise choice. We sat aside talking. And in the process of the sessions, I basically got clear that she had trust issues, that she wasn't resolved yet. Some stuff happened with the family. She hadn't worked it out yet. Because a lot of stuff we take into relationships comes from our upbringing, our family, and she hadn't resolved that yet. I said, let me know if you want to talk again. We'll set something up. Great. I saw on post social media a couple of weeks later, they got married. And they hadn't seen me in between. So I suspected she hadn't resolved it. They were divorced in a year.
Wow.
Because, and he reached out to me after and said, what you said was right. She said she'd handle it. Well, she hadn't. And the trust issues became the breaking point for their relationship.
So let's go back to what you said. A lot of times it isn't necessarily trust issues based on a romantic relationship that you've had. It could be with what you witnessed growing up in your home.
I wouldn't say could be. It's almost 99% likely it will be that. Because the thing is,
Wow.
we learn our ability to love from what we're raised with.
Yeah, this is
We
just to interject, it makes me laugh. Julie Preston says that she remembers you on the show before and she loved his accent. And just FYI, that remains the same.
Thank you. Appreciate
Yeah,
it,
he's
Julie.
very easy to listen to, Julie.
Thank you.
Thanks to everyone watching right now and everyone throwing up the comments. I saw several people pipe in, so thank you. But wow, you would go as far to say as 90% of trust issues that women or men have are based on their upbringing.
I would say more than 90% of all of our issues in our relationships come from our upbringing. For examples, well, let me say it this way. We basically at the early points of our life, and I reference Bruce Lipton's book, the Biology of Belief. He talks about how formative years, and basically we spend the first few years of our life when we're born, we basically don't know what life is about. We watch the adults around us and learn by modeling what they do. That's kind of how we learn. That's part of the human journey, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point in time, in our around 5, 6, 7 years old, we start to sort of discern choices. We start thinking about what we want to believe or not. But up to that point, our unconscious mind is like a warehouse filling up with beliefs about what happened by what we watched our parents do.
Mm-hmm.
Those observations that are stored in our warehouse then become the unconscious wiring and the groundwork for all of our relationship choices we do as an adult. So if our parents, I'll include myself, had certain things they did, we tend to repeat that with our dating partners. That's why a lot of people say, that you're going to marry your father or marry your mother. Yeah. It's because the patterns they brought forward are things we're familiar with. We tend to repeat those when we get into a relationship unless we change them. So somebody grew up with, somebody may be having issues with their partners where they keep finding men, like women who find men that keep leaving them.
Mm-hmm.
Or if their father maybe either was workaholic or was never around or divorced their mother,
mm-hmm.
The likelihood is that belief is running their choices as an adult. And this is the weirdest part, in a sense, is even though they might meet these people on dating apps, they won't actually see in their dating profiles those patterns. Of course not. You don't put up there, I'm going to leave you. That's not going to happen,
By the way, I stay for a minute and then I hightail it out of here.
But this is the thing, is that even though you meet somebody on a dating app, not just somebody you meet, socially, you tend to be attracted to, without even knowing how you do it, somebody whose patterns are built in to do that for you the way you learned, because you didn't have any. It's almost like there's some sort of things happen behind the scenes, figuring out how to get you together. But that's the way it works. It's amazingly bizarre how it works, but it does work. And so the key thing is, if you have an upbringing that you look back on and go, wasn't the best I could have had, if you seek out counsel, coaching, therapy, whatever it is, to heal those emotional wounds from your childhood so you don't carry them into your relationship, you'll be much better off.
And to recognize that, to be self-aware enough to understand what's happening and not
Oh,
always
yeah.
think that, there's something wrong with you. There
Or,
isn't. It's just
no, or
experiences.
the other part is what we do is we start going to relationship to relationship to relationship, saying it's always them, it's not us. So we never learn. That happens a lot
I
too.
bet you've seen that a lot.
Yeah. I've done it a
Yeah,
lot.
where people don't wanna change. They think everyone else needs to change or
No, I did it. I did it myself. I mean, I'm speaking not from the point of a theoretical stuff what people have seen other people do. I went through this myself, and I had to heal my own baggage, so I didn't keep repeating the same patterns in relationships that I learned as a child too. So we all have within us the collective thoughts of how we were raised, and so if you don't change it, and if your upbringing was perfect, great, but it's rare, unfortunately.
I gotta say, so my sisters and I have had conversations about this. They
Hmm.
both have been divorced, and they felt like my parents are a very rare breed. I mean, they are solid, and they've
Hmm.
always partnered so well. They've always been on each other's team. It doesn't matter, like, if we tried to weasel in there and be like, "Dad, mom's being really mean," or, "No, what'd you do to your mother?" Like, she wouldn't be
Right.
mean to you. And then the love that they have, and
It's
both of
wonderful.
this my sisters say that was a lot of unrealistic expectations that then they put
Yeah.
on their relationships. Like, they just thought that's it, it takes a lot of work.
Hmm.
And I think they were, I mean, the soulmates and all the things like that. But I think there are people who mold together more cohesively, and it takes less work than some people trying to make it work. I don't
That
know.
happens.
It just seems like they just get one another.
But
They're
I mean, yes, that happens, but I want to say, want to illustrate a point. What your sister said to you is true. This is the thing.
yeah.
You may have had incredible parents being raised by them, but sometimes you can make your own relationship choices harder because you don't know how you're going to match up to that. And I had the same thing. My parents barely ever argued, as far as I remember, and they didn't. Well, did they take sides with us kids? A little bit, but they were together 60 years till my mum passed away,
Yeah.
and then my dad passed away 9 years later. But the thing is, I know programming that I put in place that the relationship has to be perfect, last forever, otherwise it doesn't count. And
Mm.
so I had relationships that I bailed from quickly because I saw a flaw. Just one little flaw was enough to drive me out because I suddenly went, that can't work. Obviously, I'm not going to have this relationship like my parents. I'm going to leave. I mean, this is the wiring. None of this
Wow.
was conscious. I wasn't saying this to myself, but underneath the radar, so to speak, I was choosing out because I didn't think it would work.
Barry, why have this is so personal. I'm going to ask it, and you can tell me to shut my face if you want. Um, why are you single?
Good question. So the last breakup I went through, which was 2006, was the breakup that put me on this journey. And it's
Oh,
because of her. If I ever see her again, I'd like to thank her because as much as I hated it at the time and it was heartbreaking,
oh,
what she told me was the best slap around the face I needed to move forward in the work I'm doing. Because I had to learn some things that I was missing that put me in this path. What I've learned along the way is that my work is more important than anything else, apart from my relationship to spirit. And one of my teachers taught me this is that for a man who's really on his alignment to his path, his purpose comes before any relationship. And in fact, a relationship will only work better once he knows what his path is.
oh,
And I
wow.
proved that the other way around because when I was aimless, my relationships failed. So the relationship has to be supported by a strong purpose for me, for any man, to be aligned to, so that when his relationship, it doesn't put the pressure on that to make it work. And
That's amazing.
and to be answer your question directly, I haven't found anybody I want to partner with yet. And the thing is, what I'm clear about is I don't need a relationship. This is the thing I had to learn. Needing a relationship was a bad choice for me. Now, not everybody, some people that works well, for me it didn't. And so I've had a couple of dates along the way, and I've
Yeah.
been on a few dating apps. And
Wait, Robert just said, "That's solid, dude."
thank you, Robert. I appreciate that. But it's the lesson I had to learn. And I've been single for 16 years because I've not been looking most of the time, to be honest. And I also haven't found anybody that goes, oh, hang on a second, this is what I want. I've met people, women who are close to that, be transparent, but it doesn't take long to realize it's not going to fit. The energy doesn't match or that sort of thing, you know. And I've met women who are in a relationship and going, if she was single, maybe, you know.
Yeah, so the other part is so it's a spiritual journey and your work. It's
Oh yeah.
all molded together that you're on that path that you're on.
Hmm.
And the fact that you said you don't need that romantic relationship,
Right.
and that's so being so honest, and I love that. So, and you're helping so many people. And the other thing is, I know how many great friends you have. Like, you
Yeah.
have all kinds of partnerships and friendships that
Hmm.
fill your cup up too, right? Because we're
Yeah.
human, we need other people to,
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I'm not a hermit by any means.
yeah. I mean, I always like to see the posts that you make when you're sharing with someone's birthday or, whatever, and I always think, gosh, a lot of people and you have tons of friends. So
Yeah.
that gives you what you need as far as that. And then your spiritual and your career journey to help other people, that's what is taking precedence and priority right now.
And on top of that, I had to learn how to enjoy my own company. And so I
Boom.
was driven to find somebody else to fill up the gap that I thought I had. And for many people, they don't enjoy their own company. They don't love themselves or care about themselves or enjoy their own space. So it was looking out there for somebody who's going to make them feel better.
Yeah.
And that pattern I healed, thankfully.
That's so true. And like when you take those hikes and you take those beautiful uh pictures, of wildlife and the
Hmm.
scenery and all of that, that's part of your grounding process and your
Yeah,
time by yourself to
absolutely.
yeah. I love that, Barry. That's amazing and honest, and I appreciate you sharing because I didn't know if you were going to be like, that's really none of your business. I'm
No,
here to talk about other people's relationships.
I'm pretty transparent.
Yeah, you are. So another question, I'm moving right along.
Mhm.
What about people who aren't in a relationship for fear of putting themselves out there or fear of rejection? Have you ever dealt with people like that? And what advice would you give them?
Um, well, I know some people would say just get out there and do it, just just bite the bullet sort of thing. But I would say no. If you're really afraid of going hurt again, keyword again, then there's hurt that hasn't been resolved yet.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's the thing. We don't, again, as I said at the beginning, we don't necessarily face our fears and look in the mirror and go, okay, where am I out of alignment? Where am I wounded that I haven't healed? Because the thing is, dating somebody doesn't fix the wounds. We fix our own wounds with help. So if someone is afraid to date because they're afraid of getting hurt again, it's time to face the wound and heal it once and for all.
And that's not easy for people to do.
Well, on your own.
That's probably
Not
why they just push it aside. And, I know people who aren't actively dating because they think they're fine. And, if they are fine being alone, I'm the first person that says, if you enjoy being alone, that's fine. But are you really? Or are you
correct.
just afraid? So
Right.
that's something like internal work that really people have to do on their own then.
Yeah, you send them to me. I'll help them.
All right. I'll say, hey, got you a client, Barry. We'll
There you go.
see. Okay, so I was saying this on my promotion right before we came on. I have this shirt that says love
Love always
always wins. Of course, love always wins, but in relationships,
wins. Hmm.
when there are people who really love one another, but they just don't partner well, does love win then? Or is there times where those people probably need to say, I love you, but we need to separate?
Well, love does win, but it may not
Yes.
look like a romantic relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing that I mean, there are definitely friends of mine. I have women friends of mine who I know clearly we're better off as being friends than we were as lovers.
Mhm.
It's the way it
Yeah.
is. And that's the thing is that I've actually, and some, to be honest, I think some I love more deeply because of the fact we got past that point and we just love each other for who we are, not for what we can get from each other, you know?
Yeah. So you're yeah, I know. I love Always Wins. I've had this shirt for years. Love
Uh-huh.
Always Wins, but when I was wearing it today, I'm like, does love always win? Like, meaning, do you always make it? And clearly, people don't always make it. I
Well,
mean,
that's
if they're constantly at one another or they don't enjoy one another's company. I mean,
yeah.
I guess even more of the question is, when do you know it's time to throw in the towel?
Basically, when you can no longer be loving with each other,
Yeah.
that's probably one of the biggest clues. And also, you may have chosen to go see again therapist, coach, somebody before that happens, but you recognize that this relationship, because it's clearly you have um, incompatibilities you just can't cross over. And again,
Okay.
these aren't right, wrong. These are just incompatibilities. And when you know that, and you're honest with each other, and you're loving with each other, you can part as friends. Some things can be overcome, can be resolved,
Yeah.
and some people will put up with things that they really shouldn't, but they'll put up with things to stay together.
Yeah.
Of course, if you have kids, that's all often the story. But if you're just two individuals, it may be the choice you make to spend time apart and be friends rather than being in a relationship.
Gotcha. So, I these are all questions that were sent to me, but one of my questions is, and I kind of already got the answer, but in your book, do you
Hmm.
have a favorite chapter?
Actually, no. I mean, I have not gone through each chapter. Which one's my favorite? I like. I mean, I guess maybe the first one, but it's really more the fact is it's like they're all my children. I love them equally, sort of thing. No, but it's
I don't have a favorite, Debbie.
right, because the thing is, they're all good. They're all important chapters. Every single thing I've written for me was profound. It was not, and it was really challenging to express it sometimes, but it was really valuable to express it. So I love each of the chapters for what they bring, what they deliver.
Yeah, so chapter 3, I loved the title. I love all of the book, and it's a Mac Daddy. It's a big guy.
Thank you.
It's a big one. And it's powerful, and I love there's notes sections, but
Hmm.
on 3, it says there is always more to have in romance, more depth, more intimacy, more love, more fun, more connection, and more and more. And,
Hmm.
it seems so simple. Like when you read that and it's like, oh, that's powerful. And it's like, well, yeah, it
But then how do
totally
you do
makes
it?
sense. Of course, there should be more, more, more.
Hmm.
I really love that one. I love that chapter.
It's
And
one
I
of
like
my
that there's ideas too that you have in here for
yeah. Well, the thing is, that's one of my homework assignments for myself because
oh,
I in relationships in the past before my journey into this work, I would be rather comfortable when I arrived in the relationship. I put my feet up, so I didn't contribute
uh,
more, I didn't add more value. So that chapter was for me is a reminder for myself because oftentimes when we get into a relationship, we don't necessarily keep putting the effort in to make it better, to make it more fun, to make it more joyful, more loving, more everything else. There's a I think there's a meme somewhere online that has a picture like the first date, the couple when they first get together, candlelight dinner, they're eating very delicately, having a great time, the salads. 6 weeks into the relationship, they're in their sweats eating pizza, the effort's gone. So, and if here's a little tip: if you've been in a relationship for many years, especially if you have kids,
yeah,
if you don't have a date night every week,
yeah,
you need to, where you have a babysitter and you two go out together and have a romantic date. Because for many people in a relationship, we get so burdened down by the work of the relationship, especially with the family,
yeah,
that we don't take time for ourselves or each other to have the romance we need.
yeah.
So make the effort; it's worth it.
That's good. That's great advice because I think that everyone can become complacent and just like
Mhm.
get through your day and and all of that. And just to put a little extra effort in, I think is important. Let's read what Dee Dee said. I believe you can also learn off of your parents' marriage. Instead of mimicking the challenges they experienced, you can just not repeat them. Flip the negatives around, learn the lesson, and make your marriage better with those lessons. Don't blame your parents. Choose to take responsibility and nourish the love you and your husband have. Oh, Dee Dee, that's beautiful.
It is beautiful,
Um,
and add on to that because that's absolutely true. Most people don't, unfortunately, don't do that because they're a little bit unconscious to it. Let's just say that. So the fact is that for any of us who are self-aware enough to go, oh, I see my parents did that. That's great. But most people, unfortunately, don't catch that. So what
Right.
you said is absolutely right on. Hopefully people learn the lesson so they can go, you know what parents did isn't what I want to do. What can I do differently?
I
Because I'm
gotta
doing
say
it
this,
my own
this is
way.
so unrelated to anything, but I just got sidetracked. The fact that Rudy's on here watching right now, the craziest thing is I was just thinking about her before the show because I used this hair stuff that she told yeah, that she has Sean Benson using, and Sean's like, "You need to try this because this gets crazy sometimes." And I was using it, and I was like, "This stuff really is good," because Sean gave me some of it. So I'm gonna order it, Dee Dee. Thank you. It tamed the mane. Tamed the mane.
So a little commercial during the show. That's good.
Yeah, I know. I wish I could remember the name of it, but Sean had poured it in like a unlabeled bottle. But
Right.
anyway, it's
Yes.
all about the hair, people. It's all about the love. Love
There
it.
you go.
But yeah, I just think that yeah, like Dee Dee was saying, learn from what you see and try to do it differently and don't play the don't play the blame game. You're welcome, Dee Dee.
Yeah.
But anyway, so since we're running out of time, and guys, I'm gonna have Barry on every so often when he's available. He's a very busy man. He's in high demand. A lot of shows he's on. He's got a lot going on, which I'm
Mm.
thrilled about because you just totally deserve it. I am a
Thank you.
cheerleader for you. But since we're toward the end, and every time you come on, you're going to have to answer this question because the show's called Find It. So,
I
and maybe
know.
since the
Yes.
last time you've been on, there's other things you've found that you can share with us to help inspire us to find it too.
Well, this is a little promo for something else. Nothing I'm doing actually, although I've got some really cool things brewing. If people want to find out, they can follow me, of course, on social media and everywhere else. I've been involved in a group that's learning about ethical sales, and I made a post about it recently where I said that regular sales is like the old-fashioned dating, the chasing, the desperate dating, trying to find somebody. Ethical sales is like conscious dating because it's about building relationships, about building friendships, about serving the person you're with.
Ooh.
So for me, what I'm learning in this program, which is about business, is about how I'm learning to sell better. It absolutely mirrors and matches how to be in a better relationship too. So that's what I found recently.
Wow, that's incredible. And what I think you said last time was you found that you in relationships you needed to take responsibility.
Quite
Uh,
possibly.
I
It's one of
think
my
that's what
things.
you said. So, but this is really cool because in this class, this that you're taking, it completely you can use really that directly as a it transfers, right? Right over
Yeah.
to even relationships. That's so cool. I love it. Well, with that, I want you to have any other parting words that you would like to share about relationships of any kind with our audience before we head off to do whatever else we're going to do on this Wednesday evening. Although you
Right.
have a whole evening ahead of you at
That's true. West
Pacific
Coast,
time.
yeah, it's 3 hours ahead of you or 2 hours ahead of you,
Yeah,
um,
3. Yep.
or behind you, whichever way it is.
You're
I
behind
think
me. Yeah.
right, yeah. You're ahead of me. That's it. Okay.
I'm winning.
I would suggest, I guess the thing I was saying, I've said this so many times, I may have said it on the show before, I can't remember if I did, but the most important relationship you have is the one in the mirror. And if you're not taking care of that relationship, no other relationship's going to work. So make
Amen
the
to that.
relationship your priority, take care of yourself, and not just physically, mentally, and emotionally, and spiritually as well.
100% agree. Say that again loud to the people in the back. All right. That's awesome. Thank you so much again for being here. I look forward to
Thank you.
having you again, and I'll shout it out, everyone, so you know when he's going to be here. And don't be afraid to ask questions. And like a lot of people did, you sent me questions and I asked for you, which is awesome as well. We
Yeah,
can keep that
wonderful.
going. So stay tuned for next week. I have Dr. Brian Cohen on again with a ton of updates of what he has going on right now. Currently, he's been on before, but he has a lot going on. And I think everybody will find it very interesting and educational. So before we go, Dee Dee has texted in, Barry, I hope you find a beautiful love because when you do, it's the most amazing gift.
Thank you,
Aw.
dear.
And she
Nice.
is a sweetheart. I love her. And she means that. Like she'll be praying for you.
I'll
Hey,
take it.
when we're talking about find it, this show's turned into find it for Barry. We're gonna find it. That's so great.
I'll take
Okay,
it.
so yeah. You know what? If it's the right person and it's meant to be, you'll know it, right? And you'll
Absolutely, yeah.
hang on to that for sure. So,
Mhm.
yeah, see y'all with Brian Cohen next week, 8 p.m. Eastern on Find It. Next Wednesday. See y'all later. Thanks, Barry. Stick with me for a
Thank
minute.
you. Sure.
Have a
That
great
floats around me, keeping me